Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of 0 to 60, and today's episode I'm going to finish making the key that I coded to my E92 a couple of weeks ago, because we've missed part of one of the main parts of this key, and it's actually cutting the blade. Now, I thought I'd do a video on these machines because these DEFU 368s, I think they're called, 368A, they've been around and like the actual original machine has been around, I think, I want to say like 10 or 15 years, but the ingenious Chinese have been copying them for quite a while, and they seem to be getting cheaper and cheaper. And I was sort of wondering how much the quality is worsening, and if they will even do what they say on the box. Now, I have actually done a test key with it, and it did work. It was actually Mark, my brother-in-law. He had a spare blade. It was actually out of a key case, not a full key. I actually did a video on fitting a key case to an E92, so you can buy just the outside to tidy up the way that your working key looks. The blade that come in that key case, and they're pretty cheap, they're like 15 bucks, the blade wasn't actually manufactured properly, and it took a little bit of trickery to get this thing to cut a blade in a way that would actually work, but we did get it to work. I'll talk about that later. But I have used it. It takes quite a long time. It took about half an hour to get that key to work. But let's have a quick look at this machine. So initial thoughts, it looks all right. Let me just open up the top here. So there's definitely not a lot to it. Now this machine is currently plugged in and powered on. You can see the light is on in there. And that's it, she works. There are no safeties. Something that is a little bit of a concern, this is a metal housing machine and they have not connected the 240 volt earth wire. So if we have a short or if there's any issues, you're gonna get electrocuted. It's not gonna trigger the breaker in a modern main circuit, which is kind of worrying. In fact, I should probably hook up that earth wire before we do too much with it, just in case. I kind of like the benefit of having a circuit breaker. But yeah, there's not a lot to them. You can see there is the fitting for the light just here. Now, if I touch that electrical terminal, I will get electrocuted. It's kind of scary. You have to be very careful if you're playing with these machines. But yeah, light fitting just there. This did actually come with a light, and I reckon that light popped within about 30 seconds of turning it on, so I'm guessing it was a 110 volt light bulb that was supplied with the machine. It's a sort of light bulb that you use in your fridge. Luckily we had one sitting at home, so I've just replaced that with a 240 volt one, and she's all good. And you can just see, if I can get this handle out of the way, it's got the DEFU something machine motor. It's a 50-60 hertz motor and runs at 9,000 RPM. Now, it does make me wonder as well, is that 9,000 RPM at 110 or at 240 volts? It's all a bit sketch. But yeah, all in all, it's a very cheaply made machine. You can look like the hinges are going to fall off already. Even the locking tabs that lock the lid on, it's all a bit dodgy. But the worst thing, the scariest thing, is not having an earth protection circuit. It's kind of horrific. Anyway, problems I've had with this machine, they have these little tabs that are supplied with them to lock the keys in. This one works perfectly. It doesn't matter how much I adjust this one or try and screw it on or lock it onto the nut with a wrench, I cannot get this one to work. So to adjust this key holder, you just got to use a spanner, which I'll go and grab shortly to do that. They did supply it with, I'm going to take that off now because it is useless. There's no point it being on there. They did supply it with a few different fittings, an Allen key. You use that part in a minute, which we'll get to. Basically a few things to lock the keys into the key holders. And then you've got different cutting blades to cut different types of keys. Now, I'm currently using the 2.5mm, I guess you'd call it a, I don't know what you'd call it, but it's the 2.5mm bit that reads the original key, and then I've got a 2.5mm cutting blade. It's not a blade. I want to say it's like a drill bit. What do you call them? Anyway, the 2.5mm cutting blade that we use there, and we just slide it across. All right, all in all, it feels pretty crappy. Like it's not a smooth functioning machine. But let's see if we can cut a key with it, because it is cheap. I think I paid under $200 Australian delivered for this machine, so it's not a lot of money. Let's see if we can cut my spare key and get it to work. So first thing I'm going to do is get the machine set up to mirror this key. Now this is the original BMW key. In fact, what I will do before I even start, I'm just going to get a little scriber in there and scratch out all of the built up dirt and gunk that's just in the grooves, because that will affect how she cuts. So I just give it a little bit of a scrape out. Now the tool, this bit on here, does actually clean it out pretty well as you go in, but I'm going to start with it. You could probably use a wire brush for this as well. But just make sure there's no anything solid in there that's gone super crusty that's going to affect the way the key cuts. So that is there. In fact, I have a wire brush thing just here. Let's just run it up on that quick. Sorry. Okay, she's all cleaned out pretty well. So the way that I mount the key in, actually let me just show you what the issue was. So on the first key that we cut, which again, it was just a key housing replacement. The issue with it was these lines on each side, hopefully the GoPro's picking it up, but they've got these little ridges. The actual ridges were different heights on each side, and you basically you could only mount it into this key cutter one way. And with those ridges being different heights, you actually had to cut the groove different depths on each side of the key. So we've set that up to do the different depths. I'm going to set it up to do a standard key right now. So put that in, and we'll lock this key in. So the key is sitting flat down on that surface there of the key holder. And we will bring her in. Oh, God. I may take the machine apart and re-lube it just to make it work a little bit better. Cool. What I ended up doing when we did that last key was lowering the tool just fractionally. And I just want to see how much further it goes. Yeah, it's going to cut a little bit too deep, so I might just bring it up a little bit. In fact, we can actually adjust that. And the way I should do it is on this little tool here. So we can see we're going to go a little bit too far. Use the supplied Allen key. So we'll set the depth. Cool. Lock it off. What that does is means when this handle is fully down, the 2 points will actually line up and be at exactly the same length. Sweet. Now let's get the other key mounted in. Okay, so that is actually doing the same thing. The aftermarket key, I can't clamp in there the same way you can clamp a genuine key. Right. These things are sent to testers. I'll just try it again. Just use a little bit less force, because it's nice if you can get them right down, because they'll just sit perfectly flat. No. She'll sit out. So the only option then is to actually clamp it with the ridge on the top there, but then you have to ensure the key is flat. Key is not flat. So I'm going to have to adjust this key as well. Because we haven't got the key sitting down in that flat edge, you need to get both keys sitting exactly the same height in the tool. At least on that side you've got a quick adjuster. I'm just using the triangle to get my levels right. And we are good. Okay. So just add a little bit more tension to each key. We don't want to move it around while we do it. Cool. Now, something I read online is we just want to run the trace all the way along each key and make sure that it doesn't bounce around. So that is with both touching. We can lock the clamp down there's a little lock on this side, and then we can slide it along and make sure that we get good contact along both keys. And we do. Now, one thing with this machine, if you come too far this way, that one will actually fall off and then you can't get it back on. So you've got to keep that in mind when you're doing the cutting. Alright, I'm pretty happy with the alignment. It's now time to start cutting the key. So I'm going to set the depth. How do we want to do it? Okay, I'm going to set the depth with it running. What's this camera? Okay, I've switched you around so that you've got hopefully a better angle and my right hand doesn't get in the way so much. Now, what I'm going to do is basically just come down, we'll set the depth, and then we'll move around and do the key. The first cut, I'm not going to go as full deep down as possible. We'll just basically go around and we'll just see how she eats into the groove. Right, let's start with the cutting. That's not going to work. Okay, that is one pass over the keys done. Let's bring them out a bit. And you can see we haven't gone down anywhere near deep enough as we need to, but that's the way I did the other one. We're going to do the same again. It does leave quite a rough burr, and that section there is quite interesting. It's so thin. Hopefully we haven't gone too thin. Ooh, nerve-wracking. All right. We'll go on with the next cut, and basically it's going to be the same again, just going down a bit deeper. They always like it a bit deeper, don't they? All right. All right, I actually ran off the back of the key then, but we have done the pass. So let's bring them out and see how they look. Let me just get a quick brush. All right. I'd say she looks all right. A little bit of burring, which we will file off. But I reckon the actual track that we need to cut in there for the barrel to work is going to be fine. All right, I'm going to file that edge off and just clean it up a little bit. Cool. Hopefully GoPro's picking it up and it's not too reflective. But feels all right. On with the next side. Get the second side cut, and we'll be able to see if it works. So we'll put the backspacer in, key down. The way I line these up, I try and level them forwards to backwards first, so it's flat in the holder, and then bring it up to make it level that way. We've got a little, though it's awfully difficult when you don't have the nice little locking tab. I'm gonna have to make something to get it to lock a bit quicker. Then using a ratchet, okay, up against the stop. God, thought my ratchet broken then. She's pretty level. Yep. And then the genuine key. And cool. Feels pretty even. So we'll do the same, just sort of check again. So we'll bring it down, lock it down, and just make sure she touches all the way along. Cool, we're pretty level. All right. Let's get to some cutting. Go again. All right. I didn't stop the camera then, just did both passes at the same time. Let's clean it up and we'll just check it a little bit before we put it into a door barrel. Okay, and she looks the business. But it's not. So I have made a mistake, and it's the same thing I did the first time. The thickness there will be an issue. So I'm gonna have to reset the machine. We'll do it again. We've just got to cut a little bit deeper. Bugger. All right, let me reset it up. I'm probably not gonna film the recut, but I'm gonna cut both sides again. Yeah, that's what I had to do with the first key. We just got a little bit too thick in the middle. Okay, so we've done another cut, and I don't want to go too much, but we've pretty much got the same thickness down in there now. So it's just a matter of trying to see if it'll open the door. So let's go and give it a crack. In fact, we'll do it in a one take. Now I am going to spray just a little bit of lube on it because whenever you're sticking something in for the first time, it's always good just to keep it lubed. That was a terrible joke. No, just because this keyhole really never gets used. All right, she's gone in. It works. It was a bit sticky, but again, hasn't really been used. We've made a key. Well, there we go. So that took me about half an hour, but a lot of that is because I cut it twice. The machine, which is really what this is about, a review. So I'm obviously not a locksmith. This is the second key I've ever cut. It took me about the same time to cut the first key. I've got to say, the machine's pretty user-friendly, and it works, and it's cheap. But keep in mind, it is a bit of a death hazard without that earth wire in the back there. In fact, I'm going to turn this off. Yeah, so if you do get one, make sure you do something about it not being earthed properly, being a metal machine. Yeah, I'm going to leave it off there. Guys, DCT swap is going to be happening this week. I'm going to do a quick video on how I got the R270 programmer to work on the BMW clusters, because quite a few people asked about that. And yeah, the rest of the week is just going to be swapping the DCTs over. But it'll be a nice video series. All right, guys, we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.